Welcome to Rapid Roundup, a series where we take several games throughout the week, do mini critiques on them, and let you know what we think. Throughout all of this, my name is Moriarty.
And this is Brax.
And this week, we'll be taking a look at
Hanako, Honor and Blade,
High Mountain Rollercoaster VR,
Bernackels Shoggoth,
and Rollercoaster Legends. Later on in the week, on Wednesday,
we will take a look at Tartarus, a horror puzzle game that allows you to take the role of a minor chef with no experience at computers at all and then have to figure out how to work an MS-DOS type computer directory. It may sound a little weird, but it is actually super cool.
And then on Friday, we're going to be taking a look at Killing Floor Incursion. This is the VR version of Killing Floor, and it is absolutely incredible. I think that I would call it the Doom VFR that we didn't get. But for now,
let's round them up. Hanako, Honor and Blade is an independent version of For Honor, the Ubisoft title that came out earlier this year that pits like samurais against Vikings and things like that. That's my take on it, at least. Also, at the beginning, when it trains you how to fight, the different stances, the key meter, and all of those typical things that I see in this sort of game reminded me of Nioh as well. So I think it's sort of a mix between Nioh and For Honor. The reason I put it a little heavier on the For Honor side of things is because of the PvP combat that you actually do in the game. I think that visually it does look neat. It's got a nice little art style, but it's also nothing to scream about. You can tell that this isn't a AAA title, so I wasn't expecting it to be. But everything seems to work pretty smoothly except when you're sprinting. When you're sprinting, it gets harder to hit targets, and I feel like that could be brushed up a bit. They need to work on the movement because this is a game about fighting other people after all.
were you able to fight any other people?
Unfortunately, I was not. The lobbies and the servers were completely empty. There were only 3 open servers there, and all 3 of them had 0 people to play with. It still is in early access, and you can get it for $10, but I can't recommend it for $10 right now simply because there's absolutely no one playing it. Perhaps when the servers are populated, I think this could be fun, because the gameplay that I was able to experience is promising. You have heavy stances, light stances, you can block, you can use key magic, you can meditate, different things like that I think would be fun. The problem is, I can't play it against other people yet.
What's interesting to me is that this is a consistently popular style of game. People really liked For Honor, but it really came down to the cost and the time that it took to unlock everything, because For Honor was microtransaction heavy and clearly designed in the Battlefront 2 style of the Wilson loot box and all of that. So what we ended up seeing there was people clamoring for this to be a free-to-play with customization, or a game that simply unlocked everything for the amount of money that you gave into it. Where does this one fall?
I would say this one's going to be closer to the latter, because I don't see any loot boxes or... Really, I didn't even see a lot of upgradable things. It seems like the game that you buy for $10 is the game that you get. Now, I will say that the gameplay itself is not as good as For Honor, but if you have a personal gripe with the monetization of that game, then perhaps you would be willing to sacrifice some graphical appeal and play something that's a little more simple in terms of gameplay in order to get everything for the price of the game itself.
High Mountain Rollercoaster VR is a very simple, easy experience in VR. You sit down and you experience a roller coaster that goes through a high mountain.
I've played a few VR games that are on tracks, but I don't think anything this literal before.
It really is very literal. You are on a mountain and you're in a roller coaster. There you go. That's what you're going to do. It's a very simple thing. You sit, you watch. I had a couple of issues with this title simply because the sound didn't really match up with what I was expecting. For example, when you're going quickly down a mountain, it still sounds exactly the same as when you're going up the mountain. There's no rapidity in the noise, so it's just kind of click, 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 click the whole time.
Well, I'm scared of riding roller coasters in real life, so maybe I could do this to overcome my fear of it. But at the same time, this seems more like an experience than a game. Like, I don't really see what I would do other than, like you said, Just ride a roller coaster.
It is absolutely an experience. You just sit there. It's not a game. That's okay, though. This was something that I put one of my friends in. They sat there and they actually ended up lifting their hands above their head, going, wee. It was trippy. So it did fulfill what was expected, and they were happy with it. It was better than going to a roller coaster for them. This is a $3 game, and it's been on sale before, so I don't feel like you're losing out by picking this up, but it is a 6 to 10 minute experience at the maximum, and if you decide to do it a couple of times, great, but it's still a very short experience.
So there's only one ride? Like there's not a different one that you can do at a different part of the mountain? Like every experience and every ride through is the exact same?
Exactly the same. So I don't necessarily recommend it unless you're really looking for a roller coaster and you're okay with spending $3 for a 10-minute ride.
Bernackels Shoggoth is hide and go seek with dragons.
Pretty much, yeah. It's a 4v2 game, though, so it's a little bit different than some of the other kind of prop hunt games that are out there.
Yeah, I would agree with that. The issue that I had at the beginning of it, the first few minutes, is that everything was so dark that it was hard to even determine where to go. And the game doesn't hold your hand at all. You're going to spend the first few minutes just learning the map and figuring out how you can navigate through different little crevices and cracks and walls and things of that nature. And in the end, I think there are a couple of things that make it a little more interesting than a typical hide and go seek. Like you can turn on flames that will be a hazard for the persons or the people that you're playing against. And you can use things around the environment like garbage bags, chairs. You can set those up and hide behind those and hide in those. But in reality, the most effective thing is just to pick the most obscure place you can think of and sit there and be completely still.
There is an objective for both sides, but it's not very clear and it's incredibly difficult to figure out that there even is an objective. If you're one of the people who is hiding, you're not supposed to just pick a spot and hide forever. You are, in fact, supposed to find a key in order to unlock a gate and leave the game. And there are 4 people who are hunting for the keys and 2 people who are hunting for the key hunters. So there's a little bit there, but the fact is that it's just so poorly explained that you won't even realize that's what you're trying to do. In fact, we played this game for quite a lot of time and never figured out that you were supposed to find the keys until we read the press release afterwards and said, oh, there were keys we were supposed to find. But it wasn't clear at all. And on top of that, the game is too dark. And I understand why it's dark, but it's too dark for both players. If you're the hider, you should have much better eyesight than the person who's hunting.
Yeah, I agree with that as well. That's the first thing that I complained about was the darkness. And the keys, like you said, I had no idea to do that. So it was really a matter of me wandering around the map trying to find you, and you were hidden like at the top of a cave. And, you know, that got a good laugh for you because it was hilarious watching me like 10 seconds from you or 10 feet from you, not knowing you were there. But that did get a little old and boring. But like you said, with the 2v4 stuff, this game is suffering from another problem that many games that we play do. They're going to need more players because the 1v1 stuff is not fun. You have to have the full party, and I don't know if that's there. I don't know if there's enough people playing this game to consistently have the 2v4 experience where you do get to go out and find the keys and play this game the way that it was intended to be played.
The problem for me there comes back to the fact that this is a $10 title, and that means that in order to get you and a couple of friends together, you're going to spend $40 to $60, which is AAA price, and you're going to be able to play this. There are games that already exist, like Gary's mod, which is the exact same price and has this mode in it and could have modes similar to it, and also has other games and has a huge player base. So it's really difficult for me to recommend it. I feel like this needs to have a major price drop down to maybe $4 or $5, and it also needs to have a bundled package that includes an additional price drop so that you're picking up 4 or 5 copies for $15 to $20. That way there's a reason for you to pick this game up and gift it to your friends and get in there and play the title with other people. The most important thing for this game is to get a player base because it's just not going to be fun without that player base. 1v1 was boring, and we never saw another person. We also played this game for quite a long time because we wanted to experience everything out there, and the menu system was broken. There was just so many problems that when we went out there and tried to figure it all out, we had to spend a lot of time in it, and we never ever saw another person. Not once.
If they change the pricing and get more people to play the game at that point, I would likely recommend it. At this point, I can't do so.
Rollercoaster Legends is another VR roller coaster game, similar to the one we've already spoken about in this very same video. The difference here is that instead of going in and going on a single track in mountains, you're going to go on a single track that goes through various fantasy realities, including jumping through black portals and facing off against giant gods. It's a very pretty game, and it's definitely a more dynamic game, but it still suffers from the same problem, which is it's an experience, not a game.
It immediately looks a little more exciting to me based upon what I'm seeing, but as you just said, it's still just an experience, so there's nothing you can do. You can't even rock the coaster back and forth. You can't do anything.
You're not going to do anything at all. You're going to sit there. You're going to watch things happen. They're going to happen all around you, and you're going to have various historical stuff that you see which might interest you, but it's definitely not something that you're going to be interacting with. You'll see minotaurs. You will see various giant monster gods. In fact, one of them is called Tartarus, which is funny because we're doing a video on Tartarus later on in the week.
That is funny. If it comes down to it, this one looks like it does have a better experience than High Mountain, and if that's what both of them are offering, I guess that's the most important thing, because I do think that the historical things that it offers are more interesting than just looking at a mountain the entire time. How much does this one cost?
This is a $5 experience, which makes perfect sense to me because it's that next step up from the $3 experience of the other title. It's still a sit down and watch something happen in front of you kind of experience. I'm not sure that that's something that's going to excite a whole lot of people.
It certainly doesn't excite me, but if I'm left to pick between the two, I would have to go with this one because it looks neat, a bit more exciting. It's just still disappointing, for me at least, because when I play VR games, I like to actually play them. I like a little bit of a game in my games. But if you are one of those people that are maybe new to VR, or you just want to show it off to a friend or a family member to let them know this is what a VR experience is like, then I guess it would be good to have in your library so you can throw a headset on someone, right?
It's completely worth it for that kind of thing. I had the same friend who played the other one, played this one, and yet again, they were wowed. It didn't really do anything for me, but it definitely does stuff for somebody, and I feel like that is where this value is in both this one and the other one. Thankfully, this one's from War Ducks. They're the creators of Sneaky Bears, and that's probably why you're seeing this next step up with regards to quality. They've created other VR titles, so I feel confident recommending this one if you're looking to pick up a roller coaster game. So Brax, it's the end of the year. Most people are out there doing their games of the year. They're doing their list of the top games that have been made. Everybody's releasing them. They're doing big videos on them. But why don't we just go ahead and talk about ours here for those people who have just watched our videos?
I think that would be a really fun idea, actually.
Let's look at the top 5 games, starting at number 5.
Starting at number 5 is a game that many people will not even have on their list if I were to guess, and it's something that has not been out very long, but something that I have been getting into a lot lately. And it's going to be ironic for me to say this, because we trashed the VR mode of this game a few weeks ago. But my number 5 is Gran Turismo Sport. The reason I have picked Gran Turismo Sport is because I think this is the best competitive racing game that I have ever played. What Gran Turismo has done in this iteration of this franchise is included so many things that make this more realistic and more racer friendly. And what I mean by that is driving etiquette matters. Whereas when you're on the track and you run off the track, or you do something stupid, or you put those around you in danger, or what would be danger if it were real life, you're going to get penalties, and you're going to get a driver rating that is really, really terrible, that will prevent you from matchmaking with players who do prefer to drive safely. From the top to the bottom, this game is about competition and balance. You can't even tune cars anymore. It's all up to you, to what you want to do with traction control, and that's really the only thing that you can do to be better or worse than your opponent. So it's all about skill this year, man, and I absolutely love it. I am not as good at it as I have been Gran Turismo games in the past, but that's because it's all about competition.
My number 5 game is a game that I actually haven't played a whole lot of, and that's going to be The Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild. The reason why I selected this at number 5 is less about my experience with it and more about the fact that my father picked this game up and now he's obsessed with it. He thinks it's fantastic. He has spent a lot of time and has played the game over and over again. Every time I see him, he has his Switch and he has The Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild on it. That to me says that this is a game that goes well above what other games have done because it's managed to pull him in a different level. I personally think that the game is very interesting and the mechanics and concepts that are involved are very interesting, but it's not really a game that I personally think that I would spend a whole lot of time playing. But simply for the fact that it's affected my family so much, that's going to be my number 5 game.
That is pretty hilarious because my number 4 game is Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild for very similar reasons. I have a couple of friends that picked this up upon release, and I've heard so much praise for it. Things even as strong as, this is the best open world game in history. This is the best one of all time. But like you said, I've also seen people that can't put it down. Like a buddy of mine got his son a Nintendo Switch for Christmas, and now he plays the Switch more than he does. Now he plays the Switch more than his son does because he's glued to Breath of the Wild all the time. And from the people that I heard play it when it first came out that said the same thing, to the people that just picked it up over the holidays that I've spoken to, everyone is absolutely in love with this game. And like you said, it's not something that I am a huge fan of. It's not something that I put a lot of time into. But the effect of this game and just all of the attention that it's gotten throughout 2017 made me have to put it somewhere on my list. So I chose to be at number 4, only because it isn't my personal favorite.
For my number 4, I'm going with Battle Chef Brigade. This is a game that we played and we reviewed a few weeks ago. I think that this is an incredible title. It's a really simple game. I only ended up spending about 10 or 12 hours in it, so I didn't end up putting hundreds of hours into it. It's a match 3 cooking game. It's very interesting. It's super pretty. The art is incredible. The voice acting's great. The story is mostly okay. I just really enjoyed it. And it's one of those things where I found myself coming back for an hour or two every couple of days, which to me is a sign for a great game. If I can stop playing the game and then I can come back and play the game again a few days later and still enjoy it, as opposed to going through the game in one big multiple hour playthrough and then never touching it again, that's what ranks it up for me.
My number 3 game of the year is Nier Automata, because I thought that it was, in my opinion, the best RPG of the year. This is an action RPG, hack and slash game that really does so many neat things. I like the battle system. I like the art style. I like the overall atmosphere. I love the main character. I think this game does so many things right. And for me as an RPG fan, I had a little bit of a letdown late last year with Final Fantasy 15. Nier made me feel better about RPGs, and it was a game that I enjoyed a lot. And it just really helped me be more optimistic about what the future may hold in that regard, because it seems like with each iteration of Final Fantasy, they take a step away from what I like. And Nier isn't like Final Fantasy. I'm not saying that it is, but it's something that I see in the future that I could really wrap my head around as a franchise. I enjoyed it a lot. I loved it on PS4. I have not played it on PC, but I'm sure the experience is just as good. And for me, the best RPG of the year.
My number 3 is Prey. Prey was a title that I had played a long time ago, the original, and then they kept talking about a sequel and they kept messing around with it. And eventually they apparently threw the entire original story away. There is no more aliens coming down and taking the Native Americans up into space. That doesn't happen anymore. Instead, you are on a spaceship, you don't remember anything, you have to figure out the story. The best way that I can describe this game is BioShock 1 plus Deus Ex Human Revolution. If those two games are things that you loved, then this is the perfect mush, whatever, of those different titles. I had so much fun with this. I ended up playing it for hours. I ended up going back to it over and over again. I bought it day one. I loved it. This is a title that I think is super cool. This is from Arcane, who you may remember did Dishonored and the Dishonored 2 games, so you have a little bit of that kind of stealth slash not stealth gameplay going on in it, but you also have just so much more. This is such a great game. I so highly recommend it, and I think it was such an incredible RPG slash first-person shooter slash stealth game.
My number 2 game of 2017 is Cuphead, and that probably does not come as a great surprise to many people. This game is loved and endeared by pretty much everyone I've seen that's played it or even knows what it is. It's already won so many awards. It's been nominated for so many more. And what sticks out the most, of course, was the artistic design and the visual designs of this game. The first time I saw it, I was immediately blown away. It felt so pretty, but also so historical. And it was just the most unique experience of the year for me, and it felt like something that a lot of heart and thought went into, and I know a lot of work went into it because it takes an incredible amount of time for them to make those sorts of animations. I even watched a little research video on it, and it's just, minutes and hours just to do one little scene of this game. So a lot of blood, sweat, and tears and a lot of passion went into that game. It's already won a lot of Game of the Years on various platforms and been nominated and won awards for art. I agree with both of those things. And even though a lot of people thought it was too hard, I found that to be hilarious when I was watching other people play it. So that didn't really take away from the game either. Overall, I just think Cuphead was a super duper game and one of my favorite games of 2017.
My number 2 game of the year is Wolfenstein 2. This is a fantastic first-person shooter from Bethesda. It is following along in the same style as the original Wolfenstein, and I say original, but I mean the original Machine Games Wolfenstein that came out a few years ago. It is beautiful, fantastic, and super fun. It's also a remarkably competent stealth shooter if you decide to play it on one of the harder levels, and you actually do go through taking out everything on stealth. If you do that, though, you're going to have quick load and quick save memorized and quick keys there ready to go super often because you're going to die a lot. But I found that this was an incredible title nonetheless. One of the things that really solidified this for me as one of the best games of the year was the day that my mother called me and said, I need you to get off of your Steam account because I want to use your library to play Wolfenstein. That to me was oh my goodness, my mom loves this so much that she's going to call me and tell me I need to stop playing games. So for me, Wolfenstein 2 is a solid second place. I have a feeling, though, that we both have the same number 1 game.
It's very possible. Before I roll out number 1, I want to say Wolfenstein is amazing. I have to give that an honorable mention. It's awesome that your mom loves it too. One of my favorite games as well, and I came really close to putting it on my list. But with that being said, with no further ado, this will be no surprise for people that have watched me stream this year. My number 1 game of the year for 2017 is PlayerUnknown's Battlegrounds. And many people have complained throughout the year about this game being poorly optimized and how there's net performance problems and there's lag and I don't get enough frames per second. But you know what? Those same people have put in over 100 hours in this game. So for all of you people out there that say you hate this game, I know you don't truly hate it. For me, I fell in love with it the first month that it was released. It's addicting because once you finally get your first chicken dinner, there's nothing like that feeling. It makes you want to come back and play more. And this is the game this year that I followed the development of more heavily and more closely than anything else. I was even making YouTube videos about updates that were coming to this game because I was so into which new weapons were coming and which new improvements were coming. Are we getting new scopes? And then eventually we got the new map. And now that it's out at 1.0 in full release, this thing runs smoothly. It's more fun than it's ever been. The UI is beautiful. I love the new guns. I love the new map. And I have hundreds of hours in this game, and I foresee myself putting hundreds of hours into it in 2018 as well. And for that reason alone, the amount of time that I have sunk into this addictive game, it would be hypocritical for me not to say that it isn't my favorite game of 2017, because I played it more than any other game, hands down.
It is my opinion that a lot of people do not like the fact that PUBG is in the running for Game of the Year. For me, PUBG is my #1 game of the year as well. I know why people don't like that idea, and that's because it is an early access, poorly optimized, broken game. And I will admit that wholeheartedly, but I also think that, bar none, this is the most fun game that's come out all year. There's nothing like it. Yes, there's other Battle Royale style games. Yes, there's other fun games. Yes, there are other more well-optimized games, including one that came from the exact same engine maker as PlayerUnknown's that runs with no problems. But you know what? That game isn't as fun. It doesn't excite me. I get into it and I say this is arcadey and it's not fun for me. PlayerUnknown manages to be the CSGO meets Battle Royale mode that I didn't even know that I wanted. This is a game that all of my friends play, and I only play it with my friends, and I have a blast with it. I'm never going to be the guy who gets in there and tries to shroud my way to 25 kills and a top 10% of the top 1% kind of rating. It's just not who I am. But I will jump on and I'll play this game with my friends. I'll be on there playing it with Warel, or I'll be playing it with Brax, or I'll be playing it with other friends. And I always feel like I have a good time even when I lose. Even when I come in at the top and get a chicken dinner, and when I come in at the very bottom because I accidentally decided to throw a grenade at our feet, whichever way it is, I end up feeling like I have had a good time. And for that reason, this is my #1 game of the year. So there's our top 5s. Each, what are your top 5s? Let me know down below whether you agree with ours, and if not, what your top 5 would be. Leave a comment, let us know. If you think that Brax is completely wrong and, you know, he shouldn't have put GT Sport on there, which I agree, he shouldn't have put GT Sport on there. It's a bad game. He should never have talked about it. I mean, he's not even very good at it. I don't know if you've seen him stream on Twitch. He's kind of bad at this game.
Hey, it's competitive mode, okay? I'm good. It's just, you know, it's like being good at CS:GO. Until you start playing comp, you don't really know how good you are.
Well, the fact is that you're not good, and it shouldn't be on your list.
Fair
but
enough.
It's the thing. This is the top 5 games because they're the most fun, not necessarily because you're the best at them. I think I'm in the top 20% on PUBG, which means that I'm basically no better than a bot most of the time. But the fact is that I have a lot of fun with it, and that's why it's my top. So I don't necessarily think that GT Sport shouldn't be on there. I just think it's a trash game that you're bad at.
Fair enough, but I am better at PUBG than you. I mean, we can compare chicken dinners if you want. But no, seriously, I can't wait to hear what you guys have for your top 5, because I love reading through that stuff from people that I don't even know, like those nasty critics and reviewers on the internet. So I really can't wait to see what some of you guys that watch our videos and a few of you that we know from the videos have to say. I have a feeling that we're going to see quite a few of the same games listed, but I'm also interested to see some ones that I haven't even thought of yet.
So let us know down below. If you like this video, please be sure to leave a like. You can also share it, because sharing is caring. If you did like it, though, why don't you watch another one up there in the corner? And as always,
Happy New Year's!